Hello, everybody. Welcome to East Africa Showcase EAS Studies. I got an exciting business to discuss with you today, so let's get straight into it. Okay? Is that okay with you? It's okay with me. So let's get going. Before I start, it's like my favorite part of doing this. Another day, another scam, because the scams are becoming more frequent. I guess people are watching my videos if I'm getting more scams. But as usual, the best way to contact me is by email, eastoronto at icloud.com. But let me show you an example. Hey, I'm a local web developer working with small businesses around. Around where? Around the world, around Canada, around the United States, around Ontario, around downtown Toronto, around the city of Toronto, around the GTA. What does it actually mean? Businesses, small business around. I specialize in building clean, mobile-friendly websites that actually help you get customers, more customers, which is false. It's false. Websites really don't do that much to give you more customers. If anything, it's similar to social media. It's to legitimize you. Nobody gets paid off of likes or views. It's really to legitimize you so people that have never heard of you can check on your website and say that, this guy is the real deal. And that's really all it's about. I got to check my time. I'm running out of time here, but this is going to be a quick one. Also, we can place your website on Google first page, Yahoo, etc. I don't know too many people that use Yahoo, but I may send you a quote, space, and price list if interested. Waiting for your reply. Kind regards, web developer. Okay, web developer. You got to be kidding me. Okay, there are a lot of problems here. My alarm is going off. I got to turn it off. I hope you don't mind. But when somebody puts web developer and doesn't put their name there, that's a red flag. That's a red flag for sure. It's a red flag. And, just websites. There isn't really too much value in someone building a website for you. And there are many ways that you can build a website. So try again next time, pal. But thanks for the email. Here's what you've been waiting for, okay? Let's discuss the success. So far, because no business is permanent. Business is only as successful as its investment, continuous investment in itself, and delivering more value for money to consumers. But Uber, U-B-E-R, Uber, a company that nobody ever heard of 20 years ago, and now it has become a verb. And I think I have a slide on that. Yes, Uber became so reliable, so responsive, so effective that their service became a verb. So I'm not going to describe the business since everyone's familiar with Uber. It is basically ride sharing. So Uber doesn't own any cars. They have riders, they have drivers actually, that buy cars and drive people around, drive their customers around. And it's available in 70 countries and 15,000 cities. Now, when you say 15,000, it doesn't sound like that much, but believe me, 15,000 cities, there's no taxi service on planet Earth that is in 15,000 cities. Okay, 15,000 cities and 70 different countries, which is a difficult thing too, because, how do you get through languages? How do you get through iOS, Android? How do you get people to download the app? It's not an easy thing to get people to download an app and keep the app on your phone. The only apps you have on your phone are essential to what you're doing. People have limited memory space, but these are just staggering numbers. They're in 70 countries, 15,000 cities, and nobody ever heard of them 20 years ago. So, they've done a good job. And they were cash flow negative for 10 plus years. What does it mean to be cash flow negative? That means your expenses are greater than the revenue you have coming in for 10 plus years. Actually, I didn't add this, but it started in 2009 as Uber Cab. And then they changed the name to Uber Technologies. So, cash flow negative for 10 years. How did they not run out of money? What enabled their growth? And what enabled their investors to believe in the business? Because they were relying on investment capital for many, many years until they were profitable. I think 2022 or 23, post-COVID, they became profitable. But the number one reason, of course, is the simple and accessible technology. To this day, many companies have not been able to figure out a more intuitive user experience, especially for riders, where in a couple of clicks, they have your location, they have your destination, and there are no words involved. You don't have to pick up a phone and call anybody. When you get in the car, they know where they need to go. I mean, that is just mind-boggling stuff that they wouldn't have been able to do if Apple didn't create the iPhone and if Android didn't create Android operating system, the two alternatives for smartphones, the OS. Because I'm sure Apple themselves, they're a great company. Google is a great company. They probably could not come up with their own version of Uber. I mean that sincerely. They could not come up with their own version of Uber. That's why it's great to have a great open ecosystem where people can build, people can connect, and people can. I'm sure Uber has many suppliers as well in terms of servers and this different cloud-based technology, many things that Uber didn't buy, didn't build themselves. They paid to either lease or use all these different things about servers. Maybe one day I'll make a video on that. But it all comes down to simple, accessible technology. It's simple for the user, and the user really doesn't care about how the service is being delivered to them. They care about receiving the service. But let's go back to capital markets. Capital markets, billions and billions of dollars of venture capital invested in Uber to own a piece of the technology because it was clear, even in its infancy, in the first 5 years of Uber, that nobody was going to be able to build something and scale it up to the same degree as Uber. Billions and billions of dollars came into Uber, and that is what enabled them to be cash flow negative because they knew that their investors were with them long term. So, they did a good job. They really did a good job. And most of the money that they raised on capital markets went to advertising and promotion to attract drivers. That's the first time I heard about Uber myself, actually. There used to be ads on pretty much everywhere. Drive with Uber, drive with Uber, drive with Uber, because you don't have a ride-sharing service unless you have the drivers. And right now, by the way, everyone knows an Uber driver. And in Toronto, the city of Toronto, it's 80,000 Uber drivers. 80,000 that are active, like in the last week or in the last month. 80,000. I'm sure there are many people that have left the service as well. But 80,000, think of it. In the heyday of taxis, all the different taxi services combined, it was around, according to Microsoft Copilot, because that's where I'm getting my numbers from, 10,000 drivers. And there were taxi medallions that were worth hundreds of thousands of dollars because there was a limited amount and people used to rent those. Think of it, leasing a medallion. And now it's unheard of because Uber is where it's at. And does anyone think that happened by accident? No, it didn't. It happened because of the advertising and promotion. You don't hear that anymore. You don't see Uber paying for as much advertising to have drivers for Uber because they have the drivers now. Nobody else, not Lyft and not many other companies. There are many other companies that have been trying ride sharing, by the way, in North America. Worldwide, of course, there are others. But who has the drivers? It's Uber. So as a result of their marketing investment, people now choose. Everything you buy is a choice. People choose to spend $40,000 on a car for the explicit purpose of driving for Uber. So here's one of the most popular cars, 2025 Honda CR-V, which according to the last time I checked, that is the base model, I think LX, 37,000. Let's call it 38,000 plus tax. So that puts you over 40,000. $40,000 on a brand new car. And it's one of the most popular cars because it lasts forever. By the way, it's made in Canada, Honda CR-V. So if you're thinking about buying a car, Honda would be a good bet, Honda CR-V. So, but it's all because of the marketing, continuous marketing. And I'm sure there are people that have told them that they're wasting too much money, they're burning too much cash on advertising, but it worked. Now we're in 2025. If you're stranded somewhere, where are you going to go? You're going to go to Uber. So let me check my time here. Well, I wish I could talk about it longer, but let me talk about the revenue sources of Uber. Okay, maybe we know, maybe we don't know. If you know, then you can watch something else. But revenue sources, it was kind of interesting to me because I never thought about the business in this way. 25% of the fare paid for each ride, 25% goes to Uber. And then there are also booking service fees paid for by the customer that also goes to Uber. So that's separate. So I guess the other 75% of whatever you pay for the ride goes to the driver. And clearly, the longer the distance and the more time it takes to deliver the passenger, the more you're going to charge for the ride. But that is decided by Uber and the algorithm and whatever else. So Apple, I learned today because I was suspecting that maybe Apple charges a fee or a commission because it's an in-app purchase. If you don't have the Uber app, if you don't download it from iOS or Google Play, you don't have the app. If the App Store didn't exist, Uber wouldn't exist. Isn't that crazy? That's kind of crazy to me. But Apple does not charge any fees for rides or food delivery. So Uber Eats as well, because it's a physical service. It's considered a physical service, and it's a physical product being delivered, and it's only applicable to digital goods, digital items, digital services. So if you're playing a game and it's an in-app purchase, then Uber is going to, not Uber, Apple is going to charge you a 30% tax. And it's 21 hours, so I gotta wrap this up. But yeah, there's no Apple service fee. And Uber does not pay for any of the fuel, maintenance, or car repair costs associated with the car being driven explicitly for the service being delivered by Uber. It's delivered by Uber, and you can think of Uber as a brokerage. So they connect you to a driver. You're a rider, you put a request in, and the technology takes care of the rest in terms of finding you a driver. So really, they made a great investment in terms of getting the drivers. And even back then, I remember watching those ads of like, drive for Uber, drive for Uber. Why are they spending so much money on advertising? Because anything that is sponsored, it didn't get there by accident. Advertisement usually either at the very minimum costs hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars. So that's what makes advertising marketing such a good business if you can get the advertisers. But now they're pretty much pulled out from advertising, and Uber does not pay for any of the fuel, maintenance, or car repair costs. And that's what makes it profitable, because they get their share of the ride, and the driver pays for everything, all expenses associated with the car. And this is actually not a new thing. I learned recently, thanks to Copilot, once again, the AI. Taxi drivers are also independent contractors, so they're responsible for their expenses as well. All hired drivers are responsible for costs. But what is new is that Uber requires cars to be less than 10 years old, and that's what makes it better. I need to get this wrapped up, but combine nicer cars with lower prices and efficient technology, and you have a multi-billion-dollar business. That's a little short story on Uber, but yeah, it's a great. I use the Ethiopia's colors, by the way. Isn't that interesting? Green, yellow, red. I don't even know if this is going to come out well, but hopefully you learn a little bit about Uber in this case study of Uber Technologies Incorporated. Hopefully they are more successful 10 years from now with the autonomous cars or with whatever other technologies they come up with. But they've done a hell of a job so far. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one.